Okay, thank you and welcome back to our continuing session on agenda item 3. We are now at sub-item 3.4, civil-military cooperation. This agenda item has 6 working papers, which we will deal with as one batch, and 1 information paper. I'll now ask the Secretariat to present working paper number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Working paper 9 discusses civil-military collaboration. The paper raises the need to go beyond coordination cooperation and enhance collaboration between civil and military communities at a global level. It provides us an insight into current and future civil-military interoperability issues and underlines that solutions such as performance equivalent process for military authorities would increase overall safety, capacity, and efficiency. The paper highlights that challenges resulting from the modernization of the navigation system in terms of procedures, regulations, technologies, and organization require collaboration at a global level with military authorities from the outset of any developments to ensure that requirements of both airspace users are considered when improving the current system and shaping the system of tomorrow. The paper also presents a strategic approach for civil aviation regarding collaboration with the military community and highlights the key role ICAO has to play. Action proposed is in paragraph 3 of working paper 9. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you to the Secretariat. I now invite Finland to present working paper 39.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to present working paper 39 on behalf of the ICAO states, the European Union, and Eurocontrol. The paper aims at demonstrating the mutual benefits to aviation of gradually moving civil and military coordination to collaboration, from research and development stages to the implementation of the aviation system block upgrades, including rulemaking. It raises the issue of enhancing the civil-military collaboration in ATM and communication, navigation, surveillance, notably by sharing best practices and addressing challenges as well as opportunities related to digitalization, security, flexible use of airspace, and unmanned aircraft systems integration. The paper supports ICAO in developing mechanisms for collaboration with the military community to further bridge the gap between the civil requirement for predictability and the military need for flexibility. As airspace is a commonly shared resource between civil and military users, the civil aviation system needs to consider military aviation, even though the strategic objectives are not always the same. Apart better using the airspace for the benefit of both the civil and military aviation for success to implement a secure, safe, and more interoperable performance-based global network. I would like to call ICAO to develop, together with states, mechanisms to collaborate with the military community at global and regional levels to further develop civil-military synergies. Finally, I invite the conference to endorse the recommendations in the paragraph 4 of the working paper 39. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Finland. I invite the United States to present working paper 53.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take the next couple of minutes to address the U.S.'s working paper 53, on a total system approach to civil-military cooperation, and highlight its value to the efficiency of the total aviation system if civil-military cooperation is maximized and harmonized at global levels. Historically, civil-military cooperation has focused on the needs of state defense, security, and emergency procedures, as well as military readiness and response requirements. Military airworthiness designs are generally based on specific category intended for use for a defined military mission or environment. In some cases, lack of military airworthiness standards has led to reliance on civil airworthiness and operational standards. while at times there are few examples of civil-military consideration when developing civil standards, such as RVSM, controller pilot data link communications, navigations, and certification. There is now a distinct, clear, and defined need to establish procedures that support efficient integration of military and civil aviation in day-to-day operations. The effectiveness of civil-military cooperation is multiplied if a civil-military approach is applied to cover as many items of common interest as possible to facilitate the implementation of mutually beneficial solutions, to enable exchange of know-how on aeronautical technologies, and to maximize the use of available resources. Once again, civil-military cooperation should not be limited to the concept of just airspace utilization, but should also cover a variety of air traffic management and communication, navigation, surveillance initiatives, such as performance-based navigation, automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts, controller pilot data link communications, or to the challenges linked to cyber, the integration of remotely piloted aircraft, counter unmanned aircraft systems, and the emerging technologies above flight level 600. Last December, the second Global Air Navigation Industry Symposium and the first Safety and Air Navigation Implementation Symposium held in Montreal underlined the need to consider the military dimension in the Global Air Navigation Plan and the Aviation System Block Upgrade Framework. The air traffic management landscape is a complex environment in terms of technology, regulations, standards, and institutional setting, where both civil and military must cooperate. Increasing reliance on the interconnected air traffic management systems, new services, and increased use of digital technologies create cyber vulnerabilities in the ATM ecosystem, which is also a key consideration when cooperating with the military. Again, I stress greater cooperation is required in all domains. Military involvement in global modernizations must be secured, and cooperation between regional initiatives must also be fostered on both civil and military sides. In this context, NATO, as one example, can enable the involvement of the military in a global context. NATO, through the Aviation Committee, is committed to enhancing cooperation with all aviation partners. The NATO Aviation Committee, a global international platform, offers structure for collaboration among allies and partners to address aviation challenges and find solutions. As an example, the NATO Aviation Committee is also hosting international organizations such as the International Civil Aviation Organization, the International Air Transport Organization or Association, the Federal Aviation Administration, European Defense Agency, Eurocontrol, European Aviation Safety Agency, and two standardization agencies, RTCA and EUROCAE, and even partners such as Japan, Australia, or New Zealand. It is constructed to support the implementation of the NATO Total System approach to aviation, which addresses policy, procedures, standards for air activities, aircraft, and personnel. Civil-military cooperation is essential from research to operational implementation to fit all airspace users' needs. Military requirements should be considered in all decision-making initiatives with regard to procedures, regulation, technologies, and organizations at local, regional, and the global level. Let's move away from civil-military cooperation and move towards civil-military collaboration. The conference is invited to, as outlined in the working paper, to take a look at the recommendations to encourage ICAO and states to consider the military as a key partner and continue to foster civil-military cooperation and collaboration through the use of existing platforms or new collaboration mechanisms. Request ICAO and states to achieve civil-military cooperation through the collaboration with other international organizations at local, regional, and network levels in order to find balance between civil predictability and military flexibility, utilizing further development of appropriate performance equivalence solutions. We continue to urge ICAO to continue the collaboration with the military in the development of the manual and civil-military cooperation in the air traffic management, and to request ICAO to include civil-military cooperation and collaboration in the Global Air Navigation Plan, Document 9750, and consider military interest in the updated aviation system block upgrades. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, United States. As I invite Brazil to present working paper number 84, let me take this opportunity to thank the interpreters for the excellent work that's been done and remind delegates to speak at a pace that will allow the interpreters to interpret clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. As always, it's a pleasure to present on behalf of Brazil, my country, Brasilia Air Force, and Department of Airspace Control, the SEA. As indicated in the draft version of the Manual on Civil-Military Cooperation in the Traffic Management, Doc 10,080, there are two major airspace uses today, civil and military, and more. The use of system-wide information management for military purpose will largely depend on adequate security provision and that different regions do not present the same main constraint related to civil-military cooperation in air traffic management and in relation to SWIM implementation. On this matter, in this sense, it's really important to emphasize that system-wide information management concept considers that security will become a critical factor. Therefore, the global system-wide information management concept encompasses aspects such as authentication, authorization, encryption, intrusion detections, security policies, which are aligned with demands of the civil-military cooperation concept. Having said that, and consider that the collaborative communications between military and civilian air traffic control units are extremely important to improve the civil-military cooperation and to improve the air traffic management, we invited the conference to consider the Brazilian experience point out, emphasized in the item 2.1 and agreed to the recommendation in the paragraph 3.4 of this work paper. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brazil. I invite the People's Republic of China to present working paper 140.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Chinese delegation, I would like to present a working paper 140, which is about the thoughts on the civil-military cooperation and integration in China's airports jointly used by civil and military aviation. There are three parts in the working paper. One is the general situation. The first is the general situation. As the in-depth civil-military integration has become a national strategy, CAAC has taken active measures to promote cooperation with the Air Force. And as such, cooperation and integration have started from the jointly used airports, bearing in mind the balance between national defense and economic development. And great attentions have been given to top-level design, innovations and reform, and overcoming institutional difficulties and obstacles. And this is the active measures that we have taken. And 3 years after implementing the integration strategy, we have made remarkable achievements. Aircraft movements in the jointly used airports increased by 25%, and the air traffic incidents decreased by 60%. So we are proud of the remarkable achievements that we have made after the 3 years of implementation. And I'll also ask the conference to consider the following issues. We think that there are three preconditions for the in-depth civil-military integration in the dual-use airports. First is the common understanding, and second is the clear goal, and the third is the sound mechanism. So based on these three preconditions, 4 measures can be adopted to meet the integration goal. And the 4 measures are as follows. First of all is to harmonize the standards. Efforts need to be accelerated in harmonizing standards of civil-military sectors on airport design, signs and marking, clearway management, and more studies should be made in this regard. Currently, we have identified 252 standards of the two sectors that can be converged together. And the second measure is to consolidate resources from the two sectors. Resources in civil military airports for emergency rescue, firefighting, bird strike prevention, de-icing and snow removal, as well as human resources should be used in a coordinated way to provide synergy and improve the overall airport capabilities. The third measure is to converge technologies from the two sectors. We need more studies on the civil and military technologies and converge to the maximum extent the technology applications in the airport management, bird hazard prevention, and countermeasures for drones, and a fast repair of pavement, and power supply guarantee, and prevention of runway incursions. We should converge those technologies to the maximum extent, and better technologies should be selected. The fourth measure is the policy coordination. Civil-military collaboration mechanism should be developed for joint inspection, joint management, and joint maintenance. And highly efficient work programs should be developed at decision-making, management, and execution level, so as to enable the harmonization of standards, resource consolidation, and technology convergence. In conclusion, the conference is invited to note the experience in China in the jointly used airports, which comprise 4 measures, and to ask ICAO to develop and publish guidance documents to compile other countries' thoughts and experiences in civil-military integration in the jointly used airports. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to Working Paper 295 by IATA and IFALPA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of IATA and IFALPA, we present this working paper in an effort to bring forward the concerns airlines and international civil aviation authorities have with regard to recent promulgation of requirements and restrictions placed on airspaces by military authorities. IATA recognizes that these requirements are not based on standards contained within ICAO guidance, but instead are designed by states to increase or maintain their national security. IATA does not in any way question the ability of states to do so. However, we are concerned over the implementation of security requirements, which in turn may become restrictions. When requirements, whether they be new ATM procedures or in this case, national security provisions, lead to confusion, increased workload, and an increased risk of military intervention toward flights operating in civil airspace. IATA requests that a more uniform approach to the design of these areas and the associated procedures that are applied be considered. In essence, IATA acknowledges the right of a state to ensure its national security, but we request that these
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. But we request that these measures be done in a manner that will provide a safe and efficient operating environment for civil aircraft. We invite the conference to consider recommendations in paragraph 3.1. Thank you.
And thank you. The information paper 49 is relevant to this discussion. I now invite the Secretariat for clarification. There is no clarification from the Secretariat, so the floor is open for discussion. Bangladesh?
Oh, sorry.
United Arab Emirates?
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. دولة الإمارات.
Thank you, Chairman. The State of the United Arab Emirates supports Working Paper 9 presented by Secretariat and 39 by the European Union and its member states, and we support the recommendations therein. We also are in favor of anything that can enhance civil-military cooperation and air navigation, among other fields, and we express appreciation for the efforts deployed by ICAO in relation to document 10088. And we intend to implement the recommended practices. UAE intends to hold conferences and workshops for international and regional cooperation in this area. And we also intend to support, Working Paper 84 by Brazil and insist on the need to promote the SWIM concept as part of civil-military cooperation and make good use of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sweden.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sweden strongly support the Working Paper 39 presented by Finland regarding civil-military cooperation, and we also support the stated recommendations in paragraph 4.3. In Sweden, we since many years have a very close cooperation with the military organization in the air navigation service and airspace area. In Sweden, the civil and military air traffic control is successfully fully integrated. This arrangement has proven to provide flexibility and efficiency to the system. We strongly believe that civil-military collaboration is vital to cope with the future challenges, as well as to create new opportunities that would benefit both civil and military operators. With that said, we strongly believe in what is stated in the paper, and in particular, the strategic approach that we should move from civil-military coordination to collaboration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Greece.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to support the paper presented by China, number 140. That paper is in line with Working Paper 39 presented by Europe and demonstrating the need to gradually move from cooperation to collaboration. The collaborative decision-making process between civil and military aviation is the key for mutual benefits. We also agree to share experience and best practices. Therefore, we support the Working Paper 49, which started, the Information Paper 49, which started providing such experiences. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We, Germany, support Working Paper number 9 from the ICAO Secretariat. We welcome the initiative of ICAO to include the civil-military cooperation as one of the themes of the last Ganis Sanis. We strongly support Recommendation B, which implies to implement civil-military coordination mechanisms at global, regional, and local levels. We suggest in this changing the Recommendation A to read potential opportunities instead of potential threats. Indeed, in our view, the common objective is to associate the military upfront, which is considered as a benefit for all stakeholders. Furthermore, we would add in the following recommendation after the Recommendation C, reading D, request ICAO to include international military organizations on the list of international organizations that may be invited to attend suitable ICAO meetings, and then continue with the bullet E, urge states, and so on. Moreover, we would like to refer in this regard to the draft ICAO Manual 10088, deriving from Circular 330 about civil-military cooperation, which is still a draft version. We would highly appreciate having this document endorsed finally, brought to a final version, which is released to public. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving the floor, and good morning, everybody. Turkey believes civil and military aviation authorities are two important actors playing a vital role in air traffic and airspace management. ATM operational concepts envisage an integrated, harmonized, and globally interoperable ATM system. that also provides acknowledged level of safety and optimum economic operation, which is environmentally sustainable and meets national security requirements as well. ATM aims to enable all airspace users, including military, to operate their preferred flight or mission profiles and cost efficiency without compromising flight safety. We recognize that the growing civil and military air traffic both would benefit greatly from civil and military collaboration and cooperation. Therefore, Turkey fully supports Working Paper 9 presented by Secretariat, Working Paper 33 presented by Finland on behalf of EU, ECAC and Eurocontrol, and Working Paper 93 presented by United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you, United Kingdom.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The United Kingdom fully supports Working Paper 53 from the US and its objective to better involve military agencies at global, regional and local levels from the R&D phase to the deployment of systems and procedures through regulation and standardization. We especially want to highlight as well the importance of applying existing coordination mechanisms implemented at regional level. On recommendation A, we strongly support it. And those of us here today who attended last year's Gannis and Sanis event will recall the various local and regional civil-military cooperation, coordination, collaboration initiatives and processes that were explained in some detail. These are all equally valid, and they're examples of best practice that can inform local arrangements, and we call on states to make best use of them as they see fit. On recommendation C, we thank ICAO and the contributing states from around the world for the good work which has been done to develop the Manual on Civil-Military Cooperation in Air Traffic Management, the forthcoming document 10,088. And like other states, we ask ICAO to approve and publish it as soon as possible to enable states to benefit from the guidance and the best practices described within it. Finally, we also strongly support recommendation D, and in addition would seek ICAO amendment of the ATS Planning Manual, Doc 9426, to capture the need for states to establish a robust culture of civil-military cooperation based upon mutual trust between affected civil and military agencies, not just in terms of airspace management, but also in procedural, technology and systems interoperability. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Kenya?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Kenya supports Secretarial Working Paper number 9 on the need to exchange best practice, and in addition, supports the United States Paper Working Paper number 39, where we see a need to discuss responsibilities for jurisdiction of airspace above flight level 600 and the requirement to provide services for aircraft on transit in such airspaces when their operations begin. Additionally, Kenya observes that there will also be need to share real-time data with the military so that to enable diagnosis of cyber threats and isolate threats as appropriate. And also the need to recommend inclusion of military in collaboration decision-making so as to realize the benefits of implementing flexible use of airspace, which include direct flights, reduction of CO2 emissions, and implementation of free flight concept, maximizing utilization of the airspace. Additionally, we observe that the civil-military collaboration can even be strengthened better if states include or factor military operations within their airspace master plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by saying Kenzo supports the working paper 295 from IATA, and we thank them to bring this important issue to your attention. While Kenzo supports all actions in paragraph 3.1, we think this should be even further extended with an action point D. We will ask the conference to support all the actions in working paper 295. And the extra points, number D, and I will read it slowly, that we would like you to support as well, is urge states to encourage military authorities to collaborate and coordinate with civil aviation authorities and air navigation service providers on airspace use to achieve the most efficient use of airspace based on actual needs and, when possible, avoid permanent airspace segregation. This would make it even stronger and I will send that to the Secretariat a bit later on. Further, we would like to state that CANSO sees that cooperation between civil and military is essential for efficient and safe use of the airspace. We support all working papers presented today and thank especially the US for their excellent working paper 53 on the total system approach to civil-military cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. South Africa appreciates Working Paper 9 as presented by the Secretariat on Civil-Military Collaboration. With regards to the recommendations presented in the paper in question, with the recommendation A, South Africa urges ICAO to intensify its efforts in the creation of various mechanisms to facilitate civil-military cooperation. On recommendation B, we further strongly support the inclusion of military aviation in future GAM, as this will entail flexible use of airspace already captured between the civil and military aviation. On recommendation C, South Africa fully supports this recommendation to encourage forums and other platforms for the exchange of best practices with regards to this subject matter. In addition, South Africa fully supports the call by the US on the transitioning from coordination towards collaboration as contained in their Working Paper 53. Thank you.
Thank you. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Saudi Arabia support the recommendation of Working Paper 9 presented by the Secretariat and would like to put emphasis on the following topics: the development of mechanism to allow military community to be early involved in the development of provision and guidance, the need for greater civil-military integration and usage of performance equivalence. Saudi Arabia also support the recommendation of Working Paper 53 presented by the US and would like to emphasize on the need to identify all performance equivalence solutions to be used for the integration of military activities within civil airspace. Saudi Arabia also would like to support the recommendation of Working Paper 39 presented by EU, ACAC, and Eurocontrol member states, mainly Bullet B, requesting ICAO to provide appropriate guidelines on the strategic approach to move from civil-military coordination to collaboration. Finally, Saudi Arabia would like to invite the conference to request ICAO to develop additional guidance on civil-military integration and usage of performance equivalence and organize regional events on these subjects. Thank you.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Denmark would like to speak in support for the Working Paper 295 presented by IATA and IFALPA with regard to the civil-military coordination aspects being expressed therein. They seem very much to be consistent with those aspects presented by, in the Working Paper 39 presented by Finland, and as well as the information paper presented as Working Paper number 49 presenting some European practices in this domain. And in order to keep the flight safety at its high level, we strongly support the timing aspects expressed in the Working Paper 295 that is highlighting the importance to promulgate in due time all necessary information to airmen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Rwanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rwanda supports Working Paper number 53 and its recommendations. We do believe that the ICAO should encourage states to improve their civil-military collaboration efforts. We also believe that this cooperation should not be limited to the concept of airspace utilization, but could also cover a variety of other air traffic management. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. UAE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apology for requesting the floor again. The previous UAE intervention was provided by our colleagues from the UAE Air Force. We are honored and proud and we really appreciate their attendance with us at this very important conference. This will reflect the effective civil-military cooperation in the UAE. Further, UAE would like to support Working Paper 295 by IATA and IFALPA. In particular, the concerns raised by them, it is important that military activities are planned as far as practicable to limit the impact on civilian operations. And where they cannot be segregated, this should be published in a manner that is easily accessible and understood by airspace users. I put my voice as well with my colleague from the United Kingdom through his intervention. We welcome the new guidance to be published as document 10,088, and we request ICAO to expedite in publishing it. Thank you.
United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wow. Really, I think we've come a long ways. 9 years ago, in October 2009, ICAO hosted the Global Air Traffic Management Forum on Civil-Military Cooperation. Just 9 years ago. I think it is important to note now the number of papers and the interest and the interventions on civil-military cooperation that have been given at this conference. We think it is important to note that the U.S. supports all the papers and the conclusions. We fully support the ICAO Secretariat papers and Working Paper 39 for more cooperation to collaboration, or moving from cooperation to collaboration. We congratulate China in Working Paper 140 for their strategy and the coordination developments. Success in national and regional cooperation will lead to a global approach of collaboration. We appreciate the tenacity of the ICAO towards moving forward toward the Civil Military Manual and look forward to its publication. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, United States. Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Historically, civil aviation has more routes, more needs, more challenges, whereas military aviation is more stable. Nonetheless, both are important to states. Therefore, it's vital to have coordination and cooperation between the two, particularly, as Sweden said, in the use of airspace in a flexible way and swim. So Brazil strongly supports Working Papers 9, 39 from Eurocontrol, submitted by Finland, and especially WP53 from the United States, especially point 34A, with military aviation viewed as a partner for civil aviation in the future development of aviation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mexico.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Mexico also, of course, supports the Secretariat's working paper, WP9, and does so strongly. Also the US paper, 53, and the Brazilian 184. And we acknowledge the scope of what China is proposing in terms of logical steps for making these improvements. And also 295 from IATA, with the differences between military standards and civil, and the need to coordinate them for the sake of better harmonization with the ICAO documents.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We fully support working paper number 9 by the Secretary, especially we highlight in the point B concerning the request to ICAO to incorporate the military aviation aspect in the future edition of GINB, and also support the recommendation of working paper number 53 by United States to consider the military as a key partner and maintain the collaboration between civil military, and also to maximize the cooperation both of them. And Indonesia support working paper number 140 from China in the form of request to ICAO to develop guidance material on the cooperation and coordination between civil aviation and the military in the managing airport. And this time Indonesia has implemented civil military cooperation in the form of airspace management for the aviation concern, national economic, national defense, security, social culture, and the air environment. Indonesia also has developed the new domestic ATS route to implement the flexible use of the airspace. Indonesia Civil Military Coordination Forum also has been conducted regularly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Chairman. Republic of Korea strongly support Working Paper 9 by Secretariat and Working Paper 39 by European Union and its member states, Working Paper 140 by China. Close civil military cooperation and collaborative decision-making will improve not only air navigation capacity and performance, but also aviation safety and security, and also enable more economic and efficient navigation system operation. Republic of Korea believes that such kind of civil-military cooperation should also be expanded to the integrated safety management to achieve effective implementation and GAMP and GASP. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Peru.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair. Peru resolutely supports the working paper from the Secretariat, WP9, as well as 39 from Finland, 53 from the United States, and 84 from Brazil. Specifically, on WP9, we agree with the recommendation calling on ICAO to incorporate military aviation aspects in future editions of the GAMP, and the request for ICAO to provide forums and other opportunities for states to exchange best practices. And we also firmly agree that we should be urging states to establish basic civil military coordination to ensure flight safety and collaborate with their military authorities and encourage greater civil military interoperability and continuously inform the military authorities of ICAO's work with respect to air navigation capacity and efficiency, safety, cyber threats, and system resilience, and advocating collaboration with ICAO, and of course, active participation in ICAO forums to share best practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thailand.
Thank you, Chairman. Thailand support Working Paper 9 presented by the Secretariat, and the Working Paper 39 presented by Finland, and also Working Paper 84 presented by Brazil, particularly the implications of the military user in swim, seeing that the military also play a crucial role in aviation community, and the assistance of ICAO regional office to coordinate with the states regarding the civil military coordinations at the regional level would also be appreciated. And Thailand as well also welcome the Working Paper 53 presented by the United States, especially the part regarding the balance between the predictabilities in civil operations and military operation flexibility. We also support the proposals to include civil-military cooperations and collaborations in the next editions of the GAN. Thank you.
And thank you. Invite Colombia.
Gracias. Thank you, Chair. Colombia is grateful for ICAO's efforts on the question of civil military collaboration, so we support WP9 from the Secretariat. We also support the WP from Brazil, as well as the ones from Finland and the United States. Civil military collaboration is no longer optional, since we share a limited resource called airspace. We agree with what Greece, Germany, and other states have said in speaking before me with respect to the request for publication by ICAO of guidance material to states with respect to the issue of civil-military collaboration in the use of airspace. We therefore support the presentation made by Canso. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. Chile?
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair. We support and express deep gratitude to WP9 from the Secretariat, also endorsing its recommendations. Likewise, WP53 from the United States and Brazil's WP84, as well as the IATA and IFALPA paper, WP295. Thinking aloud, our approach is very simple. In this corner of the planet, we have been constantly victims of volcanoes, landslides, tsunamis, flooding, droughts, storms, cold, polar cold fronts, forest fires. In other words, 9 out of 10 natural disasters prefer us. We're only waiting for asteroids. Let's hope they never fall. And it's important to have this cooperation and assistance in the humanitarian sphere. These unplanned phenomena are truly catastrophic. Mercifully, we have air services and air bridges, so it is absolutely essential to have this civil-military cooperation, and that is why we have deep gratitude for these working papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chile. Sudan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sudan would like to support working paper number 9, presented by Secretariat, and working paper number 5.3, presented by USA, and in line also working paper number 140, presented by China, and strongly support the recommendations of China for ICAO to develop guidance material on the experience civil-military collaborations in managing airports. Thank you, sir.
Spain?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Chair. This delegation agrees with all of the documents presented and all of the statements that have made so far on this issue. But we'd like to point out a couple of points, a couple of issues. We agree with the thoughts expressed by Colombia in saying that this is not an optional issue, and also with Chile regarding the need for this cooperation in dealing with disasters, but not just disasters. It's a need in terms of day-to-day cooperation in the aviation sector. Major progress has been made over the last 8 years, said the United States, and they congratulated ICAO, and we congratulate them too, but we shouldn't be waiting for 35 years to ascertain that this is essential cooperation and not optional. Aviation safety, as well as sustainable growth of civil aviation, is impossible without this cooperation between the civil and military sectors. And I'd like to conclude by congratulating Brazil and China on the ideas they've put forward in their documents and in their statements regarding the need for flexible use of airspace. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Norway?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Norway would like to support working paper number 9 and also support the proposal from Germany to add a new recommendation D, which was request ICAO to include international military organization on the list of international organizations that may be invited to attend suitable ICAO meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Nigeria?
Thank you, Chairman. Nigeria supports working paper 53 by the United States on civil-military collaboration with respect to emerging technologies such as remotely piloted aircraft systems and unmanned aircraft systems. Considering the safety concerns introduced, as well as the security concerns to the military, I would like to suggest the need for surveillance data sharing with the military to minimize the issues of conflicts. And then specifically also working paper 295, Nigeria also supports a FALPA position with respect to permanent airspace restrictions created by some states, considering the impact on traffic as against the implementation of flexible use of airspace. Finally, Nigeria wishes to commend ICAO for the guidance material on civil-military cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgia?
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, everybody. Well, Georgia also supports Working Paper 9 as presented by Secretariat, also Working Paper 39 presented by Finland on behalf of EU, its member states, and the other member states of ICAO and Eurocontrol. And we also would like to support Working Paper 295 brought here on floor by IATA and IFALPA.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, we will seek to summarize. Sorry, Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President, giving me the floor again. I would like to support comments made by Germany. We totally agree with the rewarding of threats in point A of the recommendations made by Secretariat and rewarding by opportunities, because threats has a negative, let's say, sense. We support Germany's request about the publication of the manual on the civil-military cooperation, Doc 188, and we trust that experience and best practices that have been expressed in different for all this period have been thoroughly considered in a way that the final product proves to be a useful tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments? Thank you. Good, thank you. We'll sum up the discussions on agenda item 3.4, civil military cooperation. The committee noted that development of global provisions and guidance on civil military cooperation and their implementation remains an important element for the states to enhance safety, security, capacity, and efficiency of the air navigation system. It is time to move from cooperation to collaboration. The committee acknowledged that military authorities are key partners, and there's a need to enhance collaboration with the military community at the global and regional levels through new and existing collaborating mechanisms. Consolidations was also referred to support aerodrome operations, air traffic services, and search and rescue, even normal operations. The committee supported the notion that military aviation aspects related to cooperation and collaboration should be incorporated into the Global Air Navigation Plan, and that guidance on civil military aerodromes would be useful. The committee recognized that performance-based standards by ICAO and other standards-making organizations would greatly help the application of a performance equivalence process for military authorities and thereby facilitate global interoperability. So too was the need for appropriately clear procedures for airspace access requirements. The committee also acknowledged that SWIM and ICAO trust framework are topics of considerable importance for the military community, and therefore special attention to collaborate in these domains is encouraged. The Secretariat has taken note of the need to facilitate military attendance at ICAO meetings. And for your information, the Manual on Civil Military Cooperation in Air Traffic Management is with the Secretariat for finalization and approval. Additional draft recommendations were noted and will be considered for the report. We again request that those who made recommendations pass these on to the Secretariat for consideration. If there are no comments on the summary discussion, we can close agenda item 3.4 and we can adjourn for lunch, which is sponsored by Hague. Note that there's also a Sky Talk at 1300 to 1400. We will commence after lunch on agenda item 3.5. Thank you very much.